At the Fountain of Hope Treatment Center, when we encounter patients brought in with addiction to drugs, to alcohol, we inform them and their families that we will start by making an assessment of their health globally before we admit them for rehabilitation. And in this assessment, we evaluate, among other things, their mental health status, as well as being interested in knowing about their drug use, drug abuse, alcohol abuse patterns. And this sometimes elicits questions from our patients and their families that why do you have to check their mental health when in fact we know that they are sane, they don't have a mental health problem and they only abuse alcohol or drugs. So you may as well just go forward and rehabilitate them. So today I would like to talk in layman terms the connection between drug, alcohol addiction or other addictive behaviors and mental health. How are they related? In our practice of addiction rehabilitation, we say that addiction is a mental health problem. This means a person who is addicted is similar to a person who has got a mental health problem. So how is this so? Why did we come to this conclusion? I would like to describe a number of characteristics that make us come to this conclusion, which will help my viewer, my listener out there to understand addiction from that broad sense. This understanding is important in helping the person who is addicted to recover better, and also it's important in understanding the processes that go on when a person checks into a rehabilitation treatment center. First, this is rather obvious, I would say, that when someone takes alcohol or drugs, they excite their brain, so their behavior will change, and you may say this person is acting like they're drunk, they're high on something. This is usually an observation based on their behavior. And from this, we get the first similarity that addiction, drugs of addiction and alcohol affect the brain just like mental health problems affect the brain. So if a person is behaving in an abnormal way, in an unusual way, then it means the brain has been affected. And so if this is coming from drugs of addiction or alcohol, and this is also coming from or may be coming from a mental health problem, then the similarity is there for everyone to see. The second issue to note is that addiction problems can start and lead someone to behave abnormally even when they are not drunk or high on something. So for example, someone has been abusing alcohol, marijuana, or injecting cocaine, heroin for some time, and they're addicted to it. But now you notice that even on that rare occasion they have not drunk alcohol or smoked marijuana, their behavior now is more or less on a permanent basis, resembling someone who is not mentally stable. So there is a progression of the mental health functioning, in fact, a deterioration, so that if you are addicted, you can easily progress and develop symptoms of someone who is mentally unstable, even when it can be shown that at that time or during that period you are showing these symptoms, you have not been taking your drug of choice. In other words, then, addiction can lead to mental health problems. That's a secondary similarity. We also see the reverse, where someone who has a mental health problem gets hooked, addicted to alcohol or drugs. And this happens in two main categories. The first, which is overarching, is that when you have a mental health problem, you are mentally unstable. This often means that your sense of judgment about things around you, about your environment, and life in general may be below average. And because of this poor sense of judgment, then the ability to know that using a certain drug, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, amphetamines, and all those drugs of addiction, knowing that these drugs may injure your health, physical and mental, may not be something you're endowed with at that point in time. And so, if someone suggests this to you, like the sellers entice you to use it, or if you observe other people using it, then you do not step back and see, do I really need this? How far can I go? You tend to go overboard because of that lack of judgment, and soon you become addicted. The second spectrum is where you are having a mental health problem and it is making you unable to function, uncomfortable, and in your search for a cure, you start to self-medicate or prescribe remedies to yourself, some which include drugs. A typical example I meet in my practice, patients who come to me and they say they were having difficulties concentrating in school. They could not sleep at night. They used to have a lack of sleep, serious lack of sleep. We call it insomnia. And their friends told them that if they took a little alcohol or they smoked a bit of marijuana, they will concentrate more. So in this case, you see that this person was uncomfortable with the symptoms they were having, the lack of sleep, the lack of concentration, the weird thoughts and images coming to them, hearing voices. So in that discomfort and in the quest for a cure, someone suggested something like a drug, alcohol drug of addiction, and they said, okay, let me try it. They got hooked. So the reverse then is happening, that a mental health problem which is not well addressed is leading into addiction. This gives a clear similarity between addiction and mental health problems. A third similarity why we say mental health problems and addiction are one and the same, or they are very related, is that when someone has either of them, they tend to lack awareness at some point that they have this problem and they need to be helped. We call this, in medical terms, in technical terms, we call it lack of insight. You do not have that self awareness to know that, I think I'm unwell. I think I've made a mistake. I'm on the wrong path. Some of the people you see in addiction are really sick physically and even mentally, but they are still stuck on the point that they are okay, their life is in control, it's under their control, and it's just the people who are interfering with their life. My family is just bothering me because I don't see what it concerns them. I'm drinking my money. It's my life I'm living. So you see, this person has a problem, but that awareness that they have a problem, they need to be helped, is not there. We see this Similarly, between mental health sufferers and addiction problem, as opposed, for example, someone who has a biophysical illness like malaria or they have some pain in the joints, they will come and tell you, my knee aches, I have a fever. So you can see already they know what the problem is and they want to be cured. You don't see someone with a fever telling you, like, I'm okay, just let me continue sweating and shivering. It's not your problem, it's my life I'm leading. This similarity also helps you, my viewer, to understand the close relationship between mental health problems and addiction. Then we also see a similarity that both of these are often poorly understood by the general population, the layman out there, the non-medical, the non-professional people, the area of health. So when someone has got a mental health problem, even from the days gone, they would be secluded sometimes, they would be cast away, put to a forest edge and just be tied in a house and locked up so that they don't interact with the world. Part of the problem was that people do not understand the mental health problems. And so they tried to steer away from them, to shun them. And in this light, also, the issue of stigma comes in, that both elicit a high level of stigma because you don't understand it very well and you associate it with some evil forces, occult forces, superstition, mysticism. Maybe someone is bewitched. Maybe it is your neighbor who is trying to kill you by using jujus and supernatural powers. This lack of firm understanding then brings also a lot of stigma, which is a shared characteristic between these two problems. When someone sinks into addiction proper, and they have lost their job, they have lost their family. People think this person is bewitched because he had a good job, she had a good marriage, they had a good life, but they have thrown all that away just to drink. Do you think that is normal? I don't think that is normal. He must have been bewitched by someone. And so this deficient understanding is replaced by belief in the supernatural, the occult, and with it comes the stigma and the shunning away that people may exercise when they are approaching or dealing with these people who have addiction or mental health problems, even within their own families. And with this, we see a great similarity between these conditions. We can also say a similarity that these conditions, addiction and mental health, are often synergistic. Synergistic, I mean, they tend to build into each other such that when one starts and another one comes along, they help each other along. So, as I said a while ago, you start drinking alcohol and using drugs, you lose yourself into addiction and your mental health is deteriorating. You are becoming kind of crazy or mentally unstable. And now you find that along the way, you may not know what started before the other. Question of the hen and the egg, which came first. So sometimes they are so intricately enmeshed that each helps the other. And this synergistic relationship will make treatment for both of them imperative, like they are conjoined twins. And see, here we see quite a similarity. We can also see a similarity that the treatments, once these people come into our center, or they check into a treatment center, uh, for addiction rehabilitation, sometimes with mental health problems, or even just mental health problems initially, but now they are using drugs and alcohol, then the treatment for both of them tends to take a long time. This is a similarity for both. These are not conditions you come for treatment and a week later you are out. We normally say addiction treatment, like in our setup, a Kenyan setup, addiction rehabilitation, the minimum should be 3 months. That's a recommendation by the government. But the same government, as professionals, we add that the longer the better. If it can be more than that 3 months, so much the better. And I've said in a previous video that in some countries where resources allow, people check into addiction for much longer than 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year is common. And so both of them take a long time because even mental health problems, once they are diagnosed and you're put on medication, you will stay on that medication for a long time. And along this line of treatment, we can also see another similarity that the treatment that is effective for both addiction and uh, mental health problem is usually multimodal, multidimensional, multisectoral. You cannot come to Doctor BMS and I say that I alone can fix it, the Trump style. No, it's not that way. We normally have to get the collaboration of many practitioners and also the family. We need psychiatrist for mental health problems. We think of that. We need psychologists to check behavior problem. We need counselors. We need doctors, the classical doctors who will look at your body generally. We need nurses. We will need social workers. We need religious counselors. We need the family also to come in because in these treatments you may find some relationships have gone out, some support systems have failed, some of them are not being applied well. We've talked about the issue of enabling and codependency in previous videos in addiction treatment, which are things we want to rectify. And these things can only be rectified when you have the family or the close social group that is around this person with a mental health problem or with an addiction problem or with both on board so that they can learn, they can apply what they have learned and give their support to treatment. We also need the wider society. When these people go out, we would like them to be in groups, in social groups that support their new ways. And you've heard of groups like Alcoholic Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, or self-help groups, religious groups that usually take in the sweep after they leave rehabilitation or mental health institutions and work with them and support. So all these modalities of treatment are important and none can be left out and you expect to achieve a result. So looking at all these things I've said, you can see that mental health problems and addiction problems are closely related, kind of like conjoined twins, I dare say. And so when you have someone who has either of those or both of those, you have to be on the watch out and you have to come in and allow us, the therapist, to look all around the patient. This is where I started when I said we do an evaluation that is all round. And so I would like to explain to you why we want to do an all round evaluation because we know that when one happens, the other one may not be very far, and so we need to purposefully look for it. If it's not there, we are happy to say, oh, it's not there, and that is good for us. But even if it's there in a small quantity, we want to pick it and start dealing with it for us to deliver a call, some treatment for this person and have a better chance of healing completely. So, as I conclude my talk to you today, the take home message is that if you have someone in your family close to you who has an addiction problem and you are feeling like probably this addiction problem is the one that is driving their abnormal behavior, do not shy away from seeking help from therapists like Doctor BMS and the others. But as you seek this help, open up to show, to say out that you have also observed some other things, and this will allow the therapist to look at this person wholesomely so that we do not miss those underlying or hidden health problems, and we can treat all of them and give you a person who is wholesomely treated and has a better chance at recovery than when otherwise done and another problem is left. I hope that helps the general public a little bit. And thank you. As always, I would say subscribe to our channel, Dr. BMS channel, for more educational videos, and drop in a comment, a question. We'll be glad to answer in subsequent videos, or you can call. You can visit our center, the Fountain of Hope Treatment Center in Syokimau, and talk to us, where we can explain this in more detail and show you about what we do, so that we help these people who are having these problems of addiction and mental health problems. Bye bye. See you next time.